Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video of the series API testing using Postman. As we will be using Postman for API testing, it's important that we get familiar with its interface, and that's what we will be covering in today's session. As you can see, this is the interface which we get when we open our Postman app. So I will divide this interface into four main sections. This top section is the header. Then we have a sidebar. We have this center area, which is also, we can call it as a builder area, because this is where we will be building all our requests. And then at the bottom, we have our status bar. Okay, let's have a look at sidebar first. Okay, so the first one we can see is History tab. Over here we can access the history of the request which we have made in Postman. If you are signed into the Postman account, into your Postman account, then you can also sync your history across devices. So right now we can't see anything over here because we haven't created any request yet, but that's what will appear. All the requests will appear in this section. Moving on, the next one is collections. So collections is kind of a form of folder for multiple requests which are of the same kind. So it's just like grouping all of your requests which are of the same kind in a folder, in a collection, which makes it easier later on to run. We can run a specific collection or multiple collections. Okay, then coming on to the API section, this is where you can create a new API. As you can see, new API, giving all the API details, etc. You can create a new API over here. And then the last section in sidebar, we have filter. Filter is something if you have to search something from any of the given tab, history, collection APIs. So you can search that using this filter functionality. Right, so coming to the header section, you can see that we have a new button over here. So if we click create new over here, we can create a new request, collection, and an environment. Then the advanced features, we can also create API documentation, mock server, monitor, API. So we will be using all these features gradually throughout our course. Then the next one is import, and this is what we can use to import any collection or request. So we can import it as a form of file, folder, any link, or even text as well. Then we have runner. So this is also known as a collection runner, and it basically lets you run all the requests which are inside a collection. Then we have open new, like if you want to open a new tab, or you can open a new Postman window or a runner window, and we also have shortcuts for that as well. Moving on to the center area of the header, we have a workspace section over here. As we already covered this in the last session, I have already created a personal workspace known as my workspace, and that's what we can see from over here. You can create multiple workspaces. You can also create a workspace for your team as well. So if there are multiple people working together as a team, then you can create a workspace for your team, and you can also invite other users as well. As you can see, you can enter their email addresses and you can send them an invite as well to join the team. Okay, so now moving on to the right section of the header, the first icon, the orange one, which we can see, it's for syncing. So this basically, syncing makes all your Postman data available, and if there are any kind of changes, if you have done any edits, or if you have deleted something or you have added something, then it just like sync across all the devices that are linked to your account. And as you can see that right now it appears in orange, which means that it displays that it is in sync with the server. And if we are offline, if we are not signed in, then it will appear as offline. Right now, of course, I'm signed into my account. Okay, so the next one is capture request and cookies with Postman. So this basically capture request with Proxy and Interceptor. As you can see, there are two sources, Proxy and Interceptor. So if we talk about proxies, Postman has a built-in proxy in the Postman app that captures the HTTP request, and we will later use this Postman's proxy feature to inspect HTTP communication. And coming to the Interceptor part, there is a Postman Interceptor Chrome extension which we will be using later. So Interceptor enables us to sync cookies from the browser to Postman. Then it captures all network requests directly from Chrome, and then it saves in the history of Postman over here in this section. So we will be using all these things as well. Then the later one is settings. So in settings, of course, there are different options like release notes, documentation, security, support, etc., which we can use. Then we have a notifications link, so if you have any new notification, you can see over here. This section is basically a new one which they have added, and if you click this, this will take you to Postman COVID-19 API Resource Center. And this is basically, Postman has created few API collections to help in the COVID-19 fight, so you can go through all these different APIs. Right, okay, so then this is because manage account section. I've already signed into my account, so that's why it is showing me that I'm logged in, and you can manage your accounts over here. And this is the upgrade section, that if you have to upgrade the Postman plan, then you can do it using this section as well. Okay, now coming to this center area, you can see this is Launchpad. So the first time when you open Postman, this is what you will see. So you can create a request, create a collection, create an environment, create an API, basically everything which we can do over here as well. So you can do it over here as well. And if we do view more, then you can of course create documentation, mock server, monitor, everything which we already covered in the new section over there. Right, then moving down, you can also see the recent workspaces. Find your most recently used workspaces here. Of course, we haven't started working anything on anything, so we can't see any workspace over here which we have recently used. Then you can also customize your interface, like dark mode. If we enable dark mode, this will be something like this, or if you disable it, then you will see the lighter mode. So it's up to you that which mode you prefer working in. Then the next one is enable Launchpad. Like this is Launchpad. It means that whenever you will open Postman app, it will launch this Launchpad. If we disable it, then next time when you will open it, it will not show you the Launchpad over here. Then more settings. So more settings, we have different sections over here which are like generic settings for request, headers, user interface, etc. Then there are different themes. Themes basically is the same as the dark mode or the light mode which we already covered. Then we have different shortcuts which are quite useful, and I think the more you will use Postman, you will get familiar with the shortcuts as well. Then we have data. If you want to import data or export, then we can use these settings. There are different add-ons when we will we will also be covering Newman as well, so we will be covering this section at that time. Certificates. So any certificates like CA certificates, client certificates, you can add over here. Then proxy, all kind of proxy configurations, etc., will be done in this section. Then if there are any updates, so I would say that you should enable this, which means that whenever there are any major updates, it will automatically download it. Right now, of course, we have just recently downloaded the latest version, so we have the latest version, but next time if you want to just download all the major updates by itself, you can enable it. Or if you want to disable it, then what you can do, you can frequently check for what are the updates, and if you want those specific updates, then you can get those. Okay, so I will just enable this, and then in about section it's just showing the details about the Postman version which we are using right now. Okay, so that was the settings area. Then over here we have work smarter with Postman. So this is kind of like mini tutorial, some lessons for API which will be quite useful. Then we have some resources and events showing that what's new with Postman, and then join a team from your org. So if you have already a team set up, then you can invite people to collaborate with you. Then in the discover section we have some already available templates which we can use, or the APIs as well. So this was all from the Launchpad section. Now if we create a request, then we'll get a new tab over here, and this is what we will be using a lot in our course, because this is basically the main area where all the where we deal with all the requests. Okay, so let's have a look at this section as well. Okay, so first of all we have this request tab. Request tab by default, as you can see, that it's showing untitled request. So by default it shows untitled request if you have not set up any name yet for that request. Over here if you see, this shows, the drop down shows the type of HTTP request. There are so many different types of HTTP requests, as you can see in the drop down, and in our course we will not cover all of them, but we will be covering the most common ones which are used, and we will be using all of them turn by turn, but by default it's always the GET which you see over here. Okay, so then we have enter request URL. So this is the request URL field, and whenever we have to send a request, a URL is required which is representing the API's endpoint. So it means that endpoint of an API is available at this specific URL, and that's the URL we put over here. And then when we have to send a request, we use this button, and for saving the request we will use the save button. Over here we can see there are two icons built. Of course we are in the build section right now, so it's showing that we are creating any request over here, and this next one is the comment section. Okay, so coming down to these headings, we will not be discussing it in much detail, because when we will be creating a request, then we will be using each of these areas and it will be more clear at that time. But let's go through them quickly. Okay, so the first one is params. So params is basically that where you write any kind of parameters which you need to pass for your request. Then the next one is authorization. So if you need any specific kind of access to the API, then we have to set up the type of authorization over here. It can be in the form of a username, a password, any kind of token, etc. Then we have headers. So headers are basically which you can set up any for any content type, like a content type or date or the details of the server. So you can set up those headers over here. Then we have body. So body is where you can customize the request details. Especially it's not used for all kind of HTTP request, especially it's used for post request. So when we will do post request, we will cover that as well. And then in body there are further different types, so we will be doing all of them. We also have a pre-request script. So as the name suggests, pre-request, it means that if there is a script which is associated with a request which needs to be executed before the request is sent, then we have to put that script over here. We have to write the script over here. Then we have tests. So when you send a request, if there is any test script which is associated with that request, then it will execute whenever we will send that request. So these tests are basically the checkpoints to verify if the status is what we are looking for. Then coming to the last section over here, settings. So there are settings where like you can enable SSL certificate verification, or you can disable that over here. Okay, then we also have cookies, where you can add cookies, you can manage cookies, etc., which are required. Then over here we have different code snippets which we can use, and you can see that we have a lot of variety for Java, JavaScript, Node.js, Python, Shell, Swift, etc. Then we also have a response window over here, and whenever you will send a request, you will get a response, and this is where you will be getting the response. In the bottom section, you can see this is the status bar section. Let's start from find and replace. Okay, so if you want to find anything from the collection or from the environment, and you want to find any specific text and then replace it with another, then this one is quite useful. Then the second one is console. Of course, we haven't worked on anything yet, but this is the console where you can see all logs, info, etc., warning, errors. So this is the section where you will find all that. Okay, then we have this bootcamp link, which is basically a hub for lessons and tutorials for Postman. So this is also quite useful. Then we have these two toggles, build and browse. So build is something where we are already. This is area where we work with requests. So we are in the build section. And if we select browse, so browse section is a mode to access entities across your workspace, and also connect to the Postman dashboard. So we can see all the APIs, collections, history, environments, etc. over here. But when we have to work with requests, we will be using the build mode mostly. Right, over here then we have this hide sidebar link. So if we click it, it will hide the sidebar. Then the next one, it is the pane view. So pane view is like you can get the pane view like this, like vertically, or you can get it like this, where the response is at the bottom, or you can also drag it over here. So it's up to you that which view you prefer to work with. Then we also have keyboard shortcuts area, which we already covered in the settings area as well. So this is the same. And then we have this section with all the release notes, documentation, support, etc., community. So these are the links for that. Okay, I just realized that I have left this part, the environment part, so let's cover this part quickly as well. So the environments is like, while working with APIs, you will often need to have different setups. For example, your local machine or any server you are working on, or maybe any APIs on production. So environments give you the ability to customize the request using variables, and this is a very easy way to switch between different environments when without changing your request. So for example, you have the same request and you want to run it against different environments, so you can do it over here. As you can see that right now there is no environment set up, so that's why it's showing no environment. Otherwise you can see the list of environments over here from which you can select. Then over here also it's like it's showing that no active environment because we haven't added any yet. So you can add environments, you can edit as well, and over here also you can manage environment, so you can add, you can import, etc. So when we will be working on request, then we will be covering separately a whole section for how to add environments and how to work with that. Okay, so I think we have covered we have covered all the things available in the interface, and this brings us to the end of today's session. If you found this session useful, then please like this video and also consider subscribing to the channel. In the next session we will be creating our first request, which will be very, very exciting. So I hope that I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care.